What's going on, everybody? It's Andrew from DeFiancy. All right, so let's just jump into this. We're going to give you guys a daily update going into the trading session later this morning. Right now, it's roughly 7 a.m., so we're looking at the pre-market. Overnight, we had a little bit of a bounce here. We actually had initially a little bit of a decline, and now we've kind of retraced most of it, and we're pretty much where we were yesterday after market close. And I'm looking at this, guys, in multiple ways. So we know that we have FOMC on Wednesday, so tomorrow. And also you have US JOLTS data. So the market's not going to want to really, in my opinion, really do anything crazy today. The expected move for today is about 1%. We also still have a negative gamma situation when you look at the options data. So what that really tells me is, based off of kind of where we are right now, I mean, if you do 1% up, that would put you at about 425. I don't actually think you make it this high. And then down 1%. I mean, these expected moves are usually pretty accurate, which is kind of what I would expect for today's range. So we're talking, somewhere probably between here and somewhere probably between here is what I'm thinking. Although I wouldn't be surprised if we retested this bottom. Like I said, you do have this, you have FOMC and that jobs data tomorrow, so you might get some hedging. I mean, the market is wrecked right now, right? So it's not like the market isn't necessarily prepared for that stuff. I mean, unless you just get some kind of wonky statements from the Fed or from Jerome Powell specifically tomorrow, or if that JOLTS data is just way hot. I'm not really expecting this stuff tomorrow to really freak the markets out. But, let's be prepared for it. Who knows? I mean, we're not going to try to predict the market necessarily. We're really here to react to the market. And right now, based off of what I'm seeing this morning pre-session, I'm looking to short this. Because like I said, it's already moved pretty, I would say trivial amount from this bottom here. This is about 1% from here. And in my mind, like I said, you have this data coming out tomorrow. So if this thing starts to get closer to, this 210 area, and we're going to actually look at this a little bit closer here. Sorry if you can't see this crystal clear. But if we look at that area, so this is the S&P 500 futures contract. We call it ES. Oops, looks like this is not up to date. Let me refresh this. Okay, so if we look at this, what we see is we've blasted past. All of these are important levels that we would look at from a day trading perspective. And we've pretty much just blasted past them yesterday. And now, in terms of last week's levels, which is what you would expect price to, you'd see some resistance at, or just it's just a level of interest. The next level higher than where we are now is this 210 area, which is the previous week VWAP. Okay, this previous week VWAP. So that's why I have that highlighted. And then if we were to break higher than that previous week VWAP, then you're talking previous week value area high and previous week open, which is around 4250, right? 4250, something like that. So we're going to go ahead and put that level up here. Again, I am not expecting to see that level tested today, and that would that'd bring a little bit of confluence in with this 200-day moving average, which we already know is going to be a challenge to now get back above. But so these are really the I would say the critical levels here for today, especially this put wall here at 4,100. It's definitely not going to want to go below that very easily. All right, so this 4210, if we get anywhere close to this, early on in the session and we start to see some absorption, we are going to be sending a signal to short. And then conversely, and also, by the way, that would fill in this gap here. This was a gap that was made, which it kind of already got filled in, but these levels seem to, are typically pretty critical from a day trading perspective when you get back to them. So that there's some confluence there. let's take a look at some other things. And I don't want to make this video too long, guys. I just want to give you guys kind of a primer for today. Just to kind of go through the NASDAQ, it's like the same situation. I don't trade the NASDAQ as much. It moves a lot. I don't really like to trade it. But same kind of situation with the NASDAQ. I would assume that this is definitely a critical level of support here at 1450 roughly. Okay. Bitcoin. Or actually, before we get to Bitcoin, we're going to finish with that one. I've been talking a lot about gold. And there's a reason. Gold has one heck of a chart, my friends. I mean, when you really look at this thing, it is beautiful, on a lot of time frames. And it's close to breaking out to all-time highs. And I really, really like this chart because it's like, when you look at it, I'm gonna zoom out here, this is like a triple top already. And from my experience, these kind of tops don't hold. With this kind of base, I mean, this is like, again, when I look at this, it's just, I don't know if I've seen a chart this pretty in a long time outside of maybe a few cryptocurrencies. I mean, this thing is like amazing when you really look at it. Having such a strong base, like from a structure standpoint, it's beautiful. And like I said, the chances that it's going to reject this a third time, don't get me wrong, if it rejects it, it would actually be a fourth time. Maybe you come back down to this 1950 area. As long as you stay above this 200-day moving average, for me, this thing's still beautiful. But I'm thinking it might consolidate down here for a little bit. But once it gets whatever it needs information-wise to break that, man, you're talking about a rocket ship, I think. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if this went to 2,400, and which would be a really big move for gold. But if you look at this in the past, not really. I mean, that's pretty much on par with what it's done in the past after giant accumulation structures are completed, like with this one here. Sorry, on my laptop here. I mean, after it broke this, you see like the kind of run. I mean, this might even be lowballing it. But speculative, but I really like the chances of this being significantly higher than where it is now if it breaks. And silver is very much in a similar situation. Here, let me take this average off, get that out of the way, get these drawings out of the way. It looks kind of similar. Obviously, you don't have that like triple top setup or whatever, but I really like it to come back to this high here, which is about 29 roughly. If it can break out of its, not quite as a clean as in terms of a downtrend as we just showed you on gold. Maybe I didn't show it to you, but gold had went through a similar type of situation here where it was just kind of consolidating. Once it broke out, I mean, it was like a vicious move to the upside. This is pretty much where gold was, I guess like a month ago, or maybe like 2 weeks ago, when you had the Israeli-Hamas situation happen. It broke out and then it came to back to its local high. So very similar structures. I think that this is going to come back up here is what I'm saying, if it breaks this level. So I'm looking at this as just an opportunity. Like anytime we get a pullback intraday, I've been longing, I'm scalping it, but I'm also, interested in building more of a swing position because I really think that is definitely just a strong chart. I like the way it looks. Okay, let's finish off here with the TradeFi stuff with crude. Okay, so crude, very interesting. So, man, this one has been really interesting because it's really traded like crap, honestly, when everybody thought it wouldn't. So we're looking at the monthly here. I need to zoom in to show you. So just a few weeks ago, everyone was like, long energy, long oil, blah, 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 all these different reasons. Oil is going to $100 a barrel. And it has just been a massive disappointment, really. It never really recovered after this big drop here. And the reason why I think it's a massive disappointment, and don't get me wrong, I'm not like short oil. I'm just saying from a technical standpoint and from a fundamental standpoint, it's a little disappointing because, I mean, why would oil be here if it has so many reasons to go up? Like, if you go look at like the Israeli-Hamas situation, it's basically just brushed that off, doesn't even care, which, I actually kind of get that logic. I don't think that's actually as big of a deal as people think, but that is still it's still a pretty big threat, right? I mean, there are things that could happen there, a number of different things that could happen that could escalate the and drive the price of oil minimum. I mean, I'm not talking about World War III, just driving the price of oil up, right? And I mean, it's basically at the lows here for the past few months, which is just kind of surprising, given that there's been a bunch of output cuts. So Venezuela has put some oil online, but Saudi Arabia and Russia, like a few weeks ago, or really now a few months ago, they cut oil back, production back. So it's like, what is it like for me? This is a really interesting chart. If you think about what it could mean, I mean, I think this is the world pricing in a recession. I don't know why oil would be going down given what has happened. And don't get me wrong, it is at support, and maybe it bounces. Maybe it's, I definitely am not short here. I mean, I even have this long trigger signal saying when it got here, to start paying attention to it. But as of right now, I mean, it doesn't look bullish is really what I'm trying to say. It looks pretty bearish. I mean, it looks like it's getting a lot of distribution, a lot of selling, and I mean, you're at critical support and it's acting like it's not even there. It's done this before in the past, so we'll see. If it gets closer to like this 77 level, I'm going to be really interested in buying there, or really anywhere below this. So we're going to be keeping a closer eye on this later. But honestly, like I said, I'm not really interested in longing it the way it's behaving at this, what I would consider a super critical level, as you can see. And to finish this, let me just say, there's a reason why I think it's doing this, because it is looking for this economic data coming out this week with non-farm payroll and JOLTS data. Probably doesn't care about the FOMC quite as much, but I'm sure, there is some sort of, correlation there. But it really wants to see, is the United States going into recession, right? That's really what I think it cares about, because a lot of other countries are showing a lot of recessionary data already. Okay, so let's finish this off with Bitcoin. Old Bitcoin. Okay, so thoughts on Bitcoin. Let me take a sip of my coffee here. It looks good. In summary, it still looks good. This is what Bitcoin has done, what it's doing right now. Every other time it's broken out this year. So you see these 3 breakouts. This is kind of where you are right now. I would say, it could potentially be this piece here, but you get what I'm saying. I mean, it ain't gonna want to go down, guys. Now, it doesn't mean it really has a lot of upside either, but it looks to me like it's just gonna keep pressing. This is what it has done, but I think this result will be what happens. Maybe not to this extent. Like, this was brutal. This was some of the most brutal price action I think I've ever seen with Bitcoin, in terms of just, it's boring, no volatility. I don't think you really, again, this was just, to me, this was really brutal to actually trade around. But I don't think that it's going to do that. I think it'll be somewhere probably shorter time frame consolidation, but I think it's going to want to range between this 32 level to this 35 level. My base case is, and I might change my mind on this, but structurally, I mean, look, you still have bidders coming in. It looks good. There is some distribution. I want to go ahead and point that out here. Let's pull something up here. Thought I had the right one open. Let's pull up this data. So one thing that I've noticed, and I don't know if you guys can see my screen here, but you see where it says Bitfinex spot? I have never, and I really mean this, and I've been trading Bitcoin for a long time. I don't think I've seen a major top formed without seeing Bitfinex selling a lot. And not just like, for a couple of days. Like, they do this for like weeks. And they're always early. They're always like 5 to 10% early. So when I see that, I have to look at that from my past experience and say, okay, that what they call the Bitfinex whale has basically said this hop is close. And they also do the same thing in reverse. They buy early. You'll see a big Bitfinex buyer. I'm not sure if it's on the spot side, but just the infamous Bitfinex buyer. You'll see them come in like weeks before bottom is made. So I actually think that this is getting close to a toppy situation in the short term, but I'm expecting it. I mean, you also have some distribution, by the way, like from Coinbase and Binance, as you can see over the last 24 hours. There's a lot of spot selling. This is what you would expect. So, I mean, to me, this is not like a super red flag, but it does look like perps is generally supporting price more than spot right now. But you do have a buyer of that spot, so you have to kind of look at it that way. But again, I really don't think it's a great idea for people to get super long here, but don't be surprised. And actually my base case is this is probably going to lick a little higher, maybe between 38. I mean, that would be my high bar, and then probably more like 36, 37. We'll just go halfway there, something like that. Somewhere in here, I think is going to basically what this did. Another move up and then further consolidation. Again, look, I could change my mind a million times here, but if I'm leaning that it's probably going to do something like this. But eventually, I really do believe you're going to come back here. I don't know what causes it. I don't know if it's black swan, gray swan, whatever, but I do believe you will end up retesting this level. And the same thing happened here where everybody was like, we're never going to test 25K again. It's never going to happen. Well, you were wrong. You got 2 tests on it, right, over a really long period of time, relatively speaking, 6 months or something. So I'm not FOMOing in here. I'm just paying attention to it. And honestly, if it gets up to this level here and shows some, struggle, I'm looking to short that level. But I wouldn't want to short right here yet. ETH is in a better spot, fundamentally, but technically, to me, it's in a better spot, mainly because it just has ammo. Like when you look at this, it has people to squeeze out. Like Bitcoin has just ran everybody. It is just, it was just not a roller coaster, but a bowling ball. It's just wiped out everything in front of it. All the pins have been knocked down, and like ETH is just sitting here with, like, you could clearly, and look, I haven't looked at the data that close in terms of like how much short open interest there is versus long open, in some period of time, or like the call option data, call seller data. I haven't looked at it, but like I can only assume based on the chart that if this thing starts to push up, you're going to get a short squeeze. Now, maybe you've already squeezed a lot of that out, but I highly doubt it. Just from a structural standpoint, I mean, if you start to get closer to this 2100 level, I would assume it's going to get a little squeezy. Now, I guess, it's still coupled to Bitcoin intraday pretty much, but I think, and man, I've said this in the past and been wrong, so hold it, keep this with a grain of salt here, hold this with a grain of salt rather, but ETH BTC might be forming a bottom. And this has been just an absolute bloodfest, horrible, for ETH BTC over the last several months, but I'm thinking that you're going to probably form some kind of double bottom here. Maybe it gets one more leg down because of the ETH or the Bitcoin ETF approval. We'll see. But I wouldn't, I'm definitely not short ETH BTC. Let's just say that. All right, we're going to finish this off because I need to put together a trading plan for the Discord, but finish this off with Solana. Okay, so where are you at? It is just ripping. In summary, the end. I don't know what to tell you guys. If you missed it, you missed it. Don't FOMO in. It's just a ripper right now. You had this huge Wyckoff accumulation base. We talked about this in previous videos, and it is just relentless at this point. There's so many firms that probably realize, like, I really need to buy some Solana. There's not enough liquid supply, and these kind of moves can happen. Now, I actually think that this is getting close to a local top. I don't think you're getting higher than 40. Maybe you get higher, maybe you get to 50, but at some point this thing's going to cool off. And I still, believe it or not, think you're going to come down and test around 27, 28. If you get there, I would really look to buy, and maybe even 25. I wouldn't expect for it to go lower than really there, though. Usually these structures like to hold on these huge accumulation structures. But I'm not short. I respect the pump. There's other things that I would short before this. Unless this thing starts to show some weakness, which it just hasn't. I mean, it's strong really on every time frame still. All right, guys. Well, that is it for today. Until next time, happy hunting, friends.